Hello and welcome to the 15th round of Apex Online Racing Season 13. We're in Brazil at Interlagos for the final race using F1 2016 before switching over to F1 2017 for Season 14. My name is Justin, and joining me for all of the day's action, it's Ali.
I am indeed, and what better place to play host to the 36th and final race of AOR on F1 2016 than the legendary Interlagos circuit. It's not long before we go and get ready to do it all again for Season 14 on F1 2017, but for now we've got a pretty exciting looking final race to look forward to.
Oh yeah, Interlagos is usually incredible. High chance for rain, high-speed corners, lots of overtakes, should be good. Last time out, I was absent for the race because of other commitments, which have also left me in a pretty exhausted state. But it rained in Austin, Texas, and in the end, it was another 1-2 for the brothers of AOR, but this time it was the younger brother, STS F1 Alonso, who picked up his first ever victory in the league, with his older brother, the Flying Finn, in second place. Meanwhile, Danny M7 converted a front row start into a podium finish for the home race of Haas, and the return of ESR Lee to the league knocks everyone below Martin down a position in the standings. And if Lee finishes in second or higher here in Sao Paulo, he could overhaul TRL Martin and steal second place in the Drivers' Championship. Let's kick off this Season 13 finale, starting with the side-by-side lap comparison and full qualifying report.
Here we are at Brazil for the final qualifying comparison of the season between the Flying Finn and STS F1 Alonso. Coming in towards turn 1 now, there's a slight lock-up on the front left for Alonso there, but despite that it looks like he's managed to carry more speed through turn 1 and 2 compared to the Flying Finn. However, because Finn took a bit of a later apex through turn 1 and 2, he might have a better run down this DRS straight, but as we stop at the 150 meter board, we're going to see that there's absolutely nothing to choose between the two drivers here. Now, starting off the second sector there's a bit of a missing of the apex for Alonso there on the left-hander, and a car gets right out of the way of Finn for the second left-hander, flicking it in over the 50 meter board for this right-hander in 5th gear, just holding the power on there and into this tricky right-hander here. Bit of a lock-up for Finn there, and he misses his apex, whereas Alonso really nails the curb there. Power on oversteer through his long left-hander and into turn 10, a very tricky braking zone here, locking up for Alonso there. Both drivers flicking it into 1st gear to get the nose in, and Alonso struggling with the traction on the exit there. As we stop at the end of the curve, we'll see a couple of car lengths in favour of the Flying Finn here, and into the final proper corner of the track. So important to get a good exit out of that corner, as it's going to dictate your speed all the way down this long back straight. And at this point it's about taking the line of least resistance, opening up this DRS, turning your wheel as little as possible. As we stop it at the finish line, there's 4/10 of an advantage in favour of the Flying Finn, and he will take pole position.
So taking a look at the grid for the final race of the season, and surprise surprise, it is the Flying Finn on pole once again with a 109.8, only 24 thousandths of a second ahead of his returning teammate ESR Lee, who has found himself a new wheel and is back in the league for a one-off final race. Danny M7 takes his third top 3 in qualifying of the season, out-qualifying ESR Finch, who will start the race from 4th. STS F1 Alonso will line up alongside ESR Suprize in 5th and 6th respectively, and then we have the two manners of Franglish and RS Falcon. The top 10 is rounded out by ESR Ryan and 6 skills, with the last person on the grid, EVR Lucky Dog, who decided not to set a time and is actually the last person on this grid. We only have 11 competitors for the final race of this season. Anybody not on this results page is not racing. For some reason, today has been a massive dropout, with several drivers unable to make the start, and unfortunately the grid size is down to 11, but I'm sure we're going to have a great race nonetheless. So let's go to the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Welcome to the final grid of AOR Season 13 as we prepare for the final race using F1 2016. It's drizzling, and the weatherman is forecasting an incredible 100% chance of rain, and the drivers are making their way to the grid now for what is suddenly seeming like what will be an intense race, Ali.
I don't know what drizzle you're on about, Justin. It's a flipping monsoon out there. What is going on the track? Apparently it's inters. It looks a lot wetter than intermediate conditions, if I'm honest. But we're looking at a track map at the moment. Obviously no DRS enabled currently. In the dry, it's probably a borderline one-stop. So if it stays intermediates the whole race, I would also expect it to be a fairly simple one-stop. Tyre wear around here isn't too bad. The rears can occasionally get a bit marginal, but I would assume for most people, if it stays like this the whole race, that it would be a fairly simple one-stop.
Yeah, the intermediates do last pretty good, but when they start to go off, it does make things very interesting, and hopefully we'll see possibly some transitions from inters to full wets, which, as you pointed out, you know, so it doesn't look so bad when they're stationary. You know, we're on board with the cars there for a minute while they're stationary, and it doesn't, the rain doesn't seem so bad, but as soon as these guys get moving, the amount of spray we're seeing come off the cars and the amount of precipitation in the air as well suddenly seems a whole lot worse as we go on board with Lee, I believe this is. Yeah, we're on board with Lee, starting from second position in front row alongside the Flying Finn, and it's a good start for both of the Mercedes, but much better for the Flying Finn. And actually, we've got a Haas going up the right-hand side on the outside of turn 1. Danny M7 stealing that second place right at the start of the race, and Finch gets absolutely mugged into turn 1, loses another position to Suprize. We got a car off the circuit. Finch gets touched at the rear left-hand side, gets spun off the circuit. Yellow flags are out, and he is down to 9th position. Only 11 cars in this race, incredibly. And if we see that kind of stuff, I don't know if we're gonna see 11 cars finish, Ali.
I mean, Finch was just bullied at turn 1. I'm not entirely sure what happened. He just seemed to get squeezed from the inside, from the outside, and everything. And poor old RS Falcon is dead last again. The poor man has been in the wars the last 3 races. He was last at the end of lap 1 at Japan. He had a torrid race at Kota as well, and it's happened again at Brazil. I think we can probably predict coming to every single race now fairly safely that something will happen to poor old RS Falcon. But the leaders have stayed pretty much as you were, apart from Lee, who's dropped well down the order. He had a shocking start from that infamous cockpit cam that caused so many dramas in season 12. He has dropped well down the order. I think he's even in the top 4, is he? I can see a Sauber in the rear mirror of the Flying Finn. I think, yeah, the yellow dot on the minimap is ESR Lee, which means he's down in P5 already. That's not good at all for him, at all. From P2 on the grid, he would have expected to be much higher than that, as Danny trying to go around the outside of turn 1. Flying Finn is locked up slightly, but managed to maintain that position pretty well in the end. I think this is Finch trying to make his way back up the order. That's an optimistic move on one of the Toro Rossos. I think that's 6 Skills, who's been very generous, actually. And Finch is able to get up into, I can't remember what position that was. It's all going on now, as Danny's trying to go around the outside at turn 4. Can he make this one stick? The Flying Finn squeezing him out, and Alonso's trying to get involved as well, trying to get past Danny. It's all getting so close on the exit of turn 4 up into 5, and I think Alonso has just nabbed P2. Has he? Trying to go around the outside of Finn as well. He cannot make that one stick, but Alonso, a very opportunistic move, is up into P2.
Wow, incredible battling. Danny M7 going around the outside, or trying to go around the outside at turn 8, I believe that is, and it's not worked out for him there. Alonso around the outside at 9, very long left-hander, bit of camber to it, as well as ESR Ryan is finding out now with Finch all over the gearbox of that Sauber, and he has definitely missed his apex there, taking the karting line. I'm not sure how well that's going to work out for him in F1 2016, though, but with the inside line through turn 12, he should have had it, but no. Finch right around the outside, and a big old gap up ahead to Franglish as well. So Finch is going to have some nice clear air to try to pull away from that Sauber. Meanwhile, Alonso is putting the moves on his older brother, going to try and have to go around the outside, and he's going to have to be very late on the brakes. He's a little bit deep into the corner, but I think he's far ahead enough of the Flying Finn, and the Flying Finn really didn't seem to fight him too much there. Lucky Dog is out, though, so we're actually down to 10 cars already, not even completed 3 laps of racing. But more importantly, I think we should point out that the Flying Finn has 61 people watching him on Twitch right now. It's incredible stuff from the Flying Finn. Really, really great. And ESR Suprize actually stealing, big surprise there. Oh, man, and the brothers touch. And all of a sudden, Suprize is up into 2nd position with the inside line there into Ferradura. Incredible stuff. Danny M7 now putting the moves on the Flying Finn. Oh my gosh, he's just dropping down the order. It does look like he's going to hold off Danny for just a little bit there. But yeah, this is an intense battle for the lead with like 5 cars just within a couple of seconds of each other.
Who needs a 21-man grid? 10 people is plenty of entertainment for us. And Suprize has somehow gone from, I think, P5 to P2 in a matter of 1 sector, pretty much. And Alonso has taken the lead as 61 people watch the Flying Finn steam into the back of his brother. And Alonso is now drifting out of the final corner. That was very sketchy. I wouldn't be in Rich Mix out of there in these conditions. That was very, very brave from the McLaren. He's coming under pressure from the Sauber. And the Flying Finn has dropped back from Suprize, and Alonso is trying to defend from Danny, who switches to the outside beautifully. There's a battle for the lead as well. Oh, Danny's gone way too deep into turn 1. That is not the line you want to take at all. He locked up slightly, and it just sent him way off the track. So he's dropped down to P5, and that's Lee back up into P4 as well, as Alonso is trying to defend the lead of the race, losing it almost on the exit of turn 3. He's trying to defend on the inside from the Sauber. Suprize trying to go around the outside at turn 4. That's an optimistic move. In these conditions, and funny enough, he cannot make that one work. And is he going to be under pressure from the Flying Finn as well on the exit? He is. Can he make another move into turn 5? Don't run into the back of another car there. And he's trying. Oh, they both run wide, and the Flying Finn's going to try and nab another position up the hill into this right-hander. He's trying to make it work. He's locked up. He's drifting everywhere. This is incredible. He's barely in control of his car, yet still managing to make these moves. He's trying to go around the outside of Suprize, who's managed to hold that very nicely, but Finn's going to have the inside for the next one. They're still side by side. This is incredible. He's drifting again, full opposite lock. What a save, and Finn is still going to have to settle for P3. This is getting very hectic.
Yeah, and Lee has gotten involved now, so that, now it's the top group of 4 as Ryan has a big moment heading through turn 12. That's going to move 6 skills now up into 8th position after he started back in 10th. So he's up a couple of positions after 4 laps of racing here at the Brazilian Grand Prix. The Flying Finn now putting the moves on ESR Suprize. He'll do it around the outside at turn 1, and with a strong slipstream, actually, he's ahead of him even before they get into the braking zone. Meanwhile, his brother in the McLaren STS F1 Alonso pulling away, a bit of wheel spin for the Flying Finn as he comes out of the Senna S's and into the Curva del Sol, I believe, is that corner. I forget the name, and I feel bad about it. But on board with Lee as he gets very close to Suprize, but not quite as close as Suprize is getting to the other Mercedes of the Flying Finn into turn 4. Very close. He might have an opportunity for an overtake here into Ferradura, but it doesn't look like he's going to try that. Meanwhile, the other Sauber of ESR Ryan trying to grab 8th position off of 6 skills, who just got in that position, and he will actually take that position off the Toro Rosso, but he too goes deep. That's not the first time we're seeing this in this race so far, and 6 skills not quite able to capitalize on it. Meanwhile, ESR Lee is going to have to do it around the outside at turn 11 on Suprize, I believe that is, on his right-hand side. Yes, it is, and it looks like actually that's the second time, Ali, now that we've seen somebody go around the outside successfully at turn 11.
Yes, it was very impressive from Lee. He's been back in the league 5 laps only, and he's already pulling off some crazy overtakes. It hasn't taken him long to settle back in at all. He's now back up into P3, chasing down the Flying Finn, and the leader, STS F1 Alonso, has, you can see on the minimap, a pretty sizable gap to the chasing pack of 4 there, and that's Franglish just ahead of Finch, who's still on the long road to recovery after spinning at turn 1 and turn 2 and just hitting several other cars. It all went horribly wrong for the Williams. It was pretty poor line as well into turn 1. A lot of drivers struggling with that braking zone, really struggling to get it slowed down in time, as Lee is struggling on the exit, and that's going to put him under pressure from Suprize again around the outside at turn 4. He's so much later on the brakes as the Sauber. Lee's not going to give him any space at all. Very nice defending from the Mercedes, and he's still able to maintain that P3, but that battling is allowing the Flying Finn to pull away, and in turn Alonso has a really comfortable lead at this point.
Yeah, it's looking good for both of the brothers. Again, they're on a streak now. They have 2 races in a row where they've gotten 1-2 in Suzuka and Coda, so they're looking to repeat that or continue that trend, of course. And this was the incredible start that we saw from Danny M7 at the start of the race. But go ahead and talk us through the rest of these replays.
That's a pretty intelligent move, actually, from Danny. Instantly, as soon as he knew he had a good start, he moved over to the inside to cover it very nicely. Some pretty solid defending. And this is Alonso working some magic around the outside opposite lock. Look at that beautiful stuff from Alonso. On his screen, there is no contact with any cars. It looked pretty clean from that point of view, but obviously we've seen desync happen many times before. Let's see what happened to RS Falcon. Does he get hit by Finch? I think, yes, he does. He tangled, yeah. That is how Finch ends up spinning and also taking the mana with him. One of those very strange gluey side pods which we will not miss for the next game whatsoever. And this is on board with Ryan, who took a fairly interesting line through the final corner a couple of laps ago, and he has so many cars in front of him, so much spray as well. Oh dear. I mean, he's 10 meters off the line. He's already parted with a good chunk of his front wing. Not a good way to start. There's a lot of lag, and there goes Lucky Dog, whose race ended pretty early on. It's like driving through a graveyard on the exit of turn 3. There's just cars off everywhere, and this is Finch making picking up some more positions into turn 4 on Franglish. Fairly solid move from him. And this is the stricken Sauber of ESR Ryan under attack from 6 skills, I think that is, who's having a decent race. The sole Torosso left in this race, as Ryan, very late on the brakes, with no front wing as well, gets it slowed down pretty effectively for turn 1, considering the state that his car is in. And boy, we have the 2 Mercedes back fighting each other once again. How we have missed this.
Yeah, this has been incredible, and to see them go side by side with the DRS off, I know. Oh gosh, and we've gone and
Oh, no.
commentator cursed them immediately as they head into turn 1. Well, that's not gone well for Lee whatsoever. Danny M7 could have an opportunity here to steal a podium position off of ESR Suprize. He's got the inside line heading down towards turn 4. And is a little bit later on the brakes as well, and does take that P3 off of the Sauber. And the Flying Finn really not making massive use. I mean, I know he just had a little bit of contact with Lee, but I don't think that affected the Flying Finn all that much. And surprisingly, he is not pulling away all that much. STS F1 Alonso, though, as you mentioned earlier, is definitely making good use of the free air in front of him and avoiding any sort of side-by-side battles that are going on in the background as we switch on board with the Flying Finn. And yeah, you can see the cluster of 3 cars just behind him on the mini-map, and then another car just behind that, and another one just behind that, and then there's the other 3. So, I mean, it is still a very close race as we have rapidly approached the 25% distance mark as we're about to complete lap number 8, and it is a 3.3 second gap between Alonso and the Flying Finn, and I don't know if that's down to setup or maybe, you know, drivers prefer certain circuits. Some drivers are just really, really fast at certain circuits. Maybe STS F1 Alonso just really gets along well with Interlagos, and in particular in the intermediates, as we see Danny M7 closing right up to the back of the the back-to-back AOR champion, the Flying Finn, who, again, he just seems to be struggling in these conditions compared to his brother.
Yeah, I mean, Alonso was rapid in these conditions at coach as well, so I think it's just a trait of him as a driver, is that he is really, really good in these changeable conditions, almost Jensen Button-esque in real life. He just seems to be incredibly quick. I mean, he's outpaced the Flying Finn. If we assume that that gap is going out, which is what it looks like, then he's outpaced the 2-time champion 2 races in a row in these conditions. I don't think that's a coincidence, in all honesty. I think Alonso genuinely just has rapid pace. And what on earth is that spinning barrier?
I don't know.
That is... Oh my... I have no words to describe what on earth is... There's a barrier cartwheeling through the air trying to join in the race by the looks of things, which I can say I have never ever seen before, and to be honest, hope I never ever see again. I mean, what happens if some poor person drives into the wall there? What? Oh dear, I can see that ending in some horrible, it's not even worth thinking about, as this is Lee driving his stricken Mercedes car. He has orange front wing damage. That is really going to be hurting him through all the high-speed corners, all the braking zones as well, and I think this is going to be easy pickings for Finch down the inside. Yeah, you can see Lee is locking up a little bit. He hits the back of Finch as well, just for good measure to knock off any remaining front wing, and Finch is up into P5. Made up a number of positions, actually, since he had that incident, and Danny is now all over the back of the Flying Finn. He was really struggling, trying to go around the outside at turn 4 is Danny. They're both very late on the brakes. The Flying Finn locking his outside front tyre and defending pretty nicely, using all of his experience, and there is no way through for Danny as they all run wide by the looks of things. A big kick of oversteer for everybody, and the dancing barrier, it appears, unfortunately, is only on RS Vulcan's screen, which is a little bit weird.
Wow, yeah, I've never seen anything quite like that, but that is one way to say farewell to F1 2016 for sure. As Danny M7 comes in at the end of lap 11, comes out at the start of lap 12 on a fresh set of intermediate. So it looks like he might be going for a 2-stop strategy here if he's expecting the rain to keep up at this sort of level. And, you know, I don't know if you've noticed, Ali, but certainly I haven't noticed any messages from engineers saying that the rain is going to worsen or drivers are on the wrong tires. I mean, certainly from this perspective, I'm board with the ESR Finch in 4th position, just behind ESR Suprize as they're prepared to go side by side into turn 4. A bit of a squeeze from the Sauber there, actually. That reminded me of something, was it Lewis Hamilton and Marcus Ericsson in Brazil? They were coming into that same corner, and I think he got a little bit of a squeeze, but yeah, definitely having some flashbacks to that. The Flying Finn now with a 3-second time penalty at the distance we're seeing these drivers. I mean, I think that would drop him down from 2nd to 5th. So he's really not going to be happy about that penalty, and the penalty seems to have taken away some of his viewers as well. The viewers on Twitch not happy about that 3-second time penalty. But RS Falcon now with the fresh tires, right? He was the one that came in. Yeah. Oh no, that was Danny. I apologize. But RS Falcon onto the back of the other Sauber of ESR Ryan. And of course, with so few drivers in this, you know, all of these battles are a bit more compelling because they're all for points.
And with Danny's strategy as well, back to that, I think the two-stop maybe could be benefited by the fact there are so few drivers on the grid. Because if you think that one of the main drawbacks of doing a two-stop is because you have to deal with all the traffic and overtake everybody, there is no traffic essentially. So maybe that is what ESR Lee is thinking as he pulls into the pits for a front wing change as well. I mean, surely the intermediates cannot go to the end from here. That would be ridiculous as Danny sets the fastest lap of the race. And if you look how much faster that is than Lee's lap on the old tyres, that is 7/10 or so. He's going to have an almighty undercut on everybody, and surely Alonso and Finn are both going to have to react to that fairly quickly, particularly Finn. I think Alonso actually is well out of reach of pretty much everybody. I think Danny might be in a net P2 if he can keep up this pace, and the others don't react for a couple of laps, then I think he might be on the money for a decent position. And what you're saying as well about the rain potentially getting worse, as I mentioned, I think it was at Spa, the Inters tend to be good until we genuinely get absolutely torrential rain. There's a really marginal operating window for the wet tyres. It needs to be properly almost flooding the track for you to warrant moving on to the full wet tyres. So I think intermediates for everybody is going to be the safe option. Obviously we only saw 100% chance of rain. We don't know the strength of that or anything, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what Jeff has to say. But Finch, regardless of what the weather is going to do, he is going to have to make a pit stop instantly. 74% on those rear tyres is ridiculous. I said in the intro as well, it could be marginal on the rear tyres. The fronts are fine, but marginal on the rear tyres definitely with the middle sector. So many kind of low speed traction zones, it is probably going to wear them out pretty quickly. And you can see that's a perfect example from Finch. He has eaten through those rear tyres extremely quickly.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the low-speed corners and just the lack of grip, the drivers are spinning up those rear tires as soon as they get on the throttle with the ridiculous amount of horsepower that the cars have, of course. Danny M7 now, with those fresh tires, has flown right oh my gosh, we're not even halfway down the straight, and the Haas is already pulling past the Manor. He's so much later onto the brakes as well, can nearly take the apex. You know, he was clearly prepared to leave room for Falcon if he needed to there, but he quickly realized he did not need to and just turned right into the apex. And it nearly made it. The Flying Finn finding his apex very nicely for turn 11, and then yeah, there's one of those traction zones there coming out of turn 11, and then you just got to put the power down to those rear wheels and accelerate down towards turn 12. SDS F1 Alonso is going to come in this lap, so this is exactly what Ali was talking about. We're going to see what sort of damage that has done, or what sort of advantage Danny has now for being the first of the pitters. Remember, he pitted at the end of lap 11. We're now at the end of lap 15, so he's got a 4-lap advantage on the leaders. Alonso as well into the pits. ESR Lee on these fresh intermediates is having a bear of a time getting past Franglish into the final corner, not technically, but yeah, the final real corner anyway. He might have an opportunity heading into turn 1, or of course if he goes into the pits, that'll make his job that much easier. So back on board with Lee. Franglish does not go into the pits. He's going to have to get by him the old-fashioned way around the outside into turn 1. Surely he could be so much later on those brakes, and he is indeed, and he's going to leave some room at the inside there. Franglish comes back at him, actually carries an incredible amount of speed through turn 1, protects that P9, and that's going to be really frustrating for Lee. And look at RS Falcon. His tire wear is so even. That is truly incredible. He's up to P7 at the moment after people have been coming into the pits, and he's definitely going to be able to make the one-stop work here.
And I think if Alonso, say, who pitted a couple of laps ago, I think he pitted lap 15 actually, yep. If he was to try and go to the end, that would be very marginal. He had 70% tyre wear. Finn has got 66, so I think, yeah, he's definitely going to try and go for the one-stop, and it's 50-50 whether Alonso can go for that or not. It's going to be a risk, whichever strategy call he decides to go with, but it looks like he's definitely differing from his brother, who's pitting at least 2 laps later, and Danny is trying to make use of these fresh intermediate tyres. He's still a long way back from the Flying Finn, though. If you think that Finn is the dot going into turn 4 at the moment, Danny's only just going into turn 1. He's going to have to be going extremely fast and overtaking several other cars in the process if he wants to get anywhere near the Flying Finn. You got to think that the one stop was probably the way to go, as this battle is still going on. Oh, there's a lot of lag. It brings back bad memories seeing Cupid in cockpit cam with lag going on and dive bombs everywhere. It's just flashbacks everywhere. He's all over the back of Franglish and has been for several laps now, and he's been pretty mature defending from Franglish. He's been pretty sensible with all of his moves. This is getting very feisty though. Lee is all over the place round the outside into turn 4 though, and he still can't make it stick, can he, on the curb on the exit? Franglish is still there and he's drifting around the outside, and finally, at long last, Lee is up into P8. That would have been incredibly frustrating for the Mercedes driver, but he's finally made up the position, and now he's got a huge amount of clear air in front of him. I'm not sure who that car is. Oh, that was pretty abrupt, and goodbye Lee. It was nice knowing you for the 17 laps, and oh dear, that's not the way he would have wanted his season to end. I mean, it's been a strange season, having missed so many races due to his wheel braking. He's actually managed to get himself a new wheel and rejoin the league for the final race, and unfortunately it's all gone wrong in one moment as the Flying Finn has finally pitted on lap 17, and that's surely, he's done almost half the race on that start set. You would assume, Justin, that is probably good enough to get to the end. So he did the 17 lap stint. Now he needs to do a 19 lap stint, but he's going to have lighter fuel as well. So I really think laps, I would not have wanted to do 16 and 20 personally. So I think his strategy of pitting on 17 definitely makes sense. That's something I would have done too, which is one of the few things I was actually decent at when I was racing, was just deciding when to pit. RS Falcon is going to come out on a fresh set of intermediates, and he's going to touch the barrier, and that's going to lose out on any sort of opportunity he had of holding on to that P9, but Six Skills does make his way through. This is ESR Ryan, who is having the absolute longest pit stop in the world, and it is 10 seconds for that pit stop. He pits right smack dab in the middle at the end of lap 18, which I think is another solid choice as well, especially because it was a brand new set that they started on, but really I think 17 was the optimal lap, so kudos to the Flying Finn. I mean, he no surprise that he's good at strategy as well as actual racing, considering he's back-to-back champion. RS Falcon, though, around the outside at turn 1 is going to dispatch Six Skills and put him back down into P9 as Falcon now up into P8, but with a big old gap to him, to his teammate, Franglish, up the road. And actually, he does need to worry about that Toro Rosso in his mirrors as he heads down towards turn 4. A very popular overtaking location, of course, is turn 4. His tire wear is looking fantastic. And once again, though, his tire wear seems to be front limited rather than rear limited, which is what we're seeing from pretty much everybody else. So I'm not sure if he's just that little bit kinder on his tires, a little bit better throttle control, but it is doing well for him. Now, Alonso is ahead of Danny M7, but he and Danny M7, we predict, are going to be doing the two-stop. Danny stopping on lap 11. I mean, Alonso might try, but as you said before, 21 laps on a set of inners as the Flying Finn puts in a 120.373, nearly down into the 119s, and just past the halfway point of this race. That was at lap 18, of course, and oh my gosh, losing a bunch of time to Danny M7 there through Curva del Sol. That was an interesting one, but he is back up to 65 viewers, which I think is the important thing. It is definitely the important thing, as he is closing up to the back of Danny's now on the fresher tyres, so I think we can fairly safely assume that Danny's two-stop has not really paid off. If you think that he's going to have to stop again and then make up all of that time, I frankly cannot see that happening, regardless of the circumstances, really, as RS Falcon is being badgered into turn 4 by Six Skills. He's trying to defend on the inside. I'm sure, having just pitted, he wants to make the most of these tyres, and he cannot really do that under pressure from that Toro Rosso. And ESR Ryan is the last of the runners currently rolling around a very lonely race. That's a long way behind Six Skills, but still, he's going to be picking up a solid single championship point, so fair play to him for carrying on in that one. I believe he can overtake AOR Reversal for P10 in the standings if he has, or if he improves his position, which unfortunately for him doesn't really look like happening at the moment. But this is Alonso, whose tyre wear doesn't seem to be that bad. He's been on these tyres, what, 7 or 6 laps? Yeah, he's just starting his 7th. And if he has 20% roughly tyre wear, mental maths is not my strong point, so I'm not going to try and work that out. but I think that will probably be touch and go if he tries to go to the end. But I think with the tyres on that percentage, what's the point in pitting again? Just try and risk it and go to the end. I'm sure he'll be capable of tyre saving, driving within himself to try and nurse those rear tyres to the end, not doing things like that if he wants to try and get those tyres to the end. But I think it probably should be doable if he goes. I mean, yes, he might end up having to drive like a snail, but he will get to the end, and I think he would definitely lose more time by pitting than he would by saving tyres, if that makes any sense. I mean, you can see Danny's two-stop is just not going to work at all. So if Alonso wants to win this race, he's got to gamble. He has got to stick on the one-stop strategy, I think. As I was talking about ESR Ryan having a huge gap to 6 skills in front, that has all evaporated in the matter of half a lap, and 6 skills has disappeared. Something severely bad has happened to 6 skills. Maybe he's tangled with the dancing barrier or something along those lines. I mean, we haven't quite seen what happened there, but still, he's dropped a long way down the order. I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. Finch is back up into P4 after his adventures and is under a lot of pressure actually from ESR Suprize as Finn bangs in yet another incredibly fast lap. That's 7/10 faster than what Finch managed, and Finch is no slouch at all. He's also destroying his rear tyres. He's going to struggle to get to the end. I think he was one of the two stoppers? I think he was, as Danny is under all kinds of pressure from the flying Finn, defending into turn 4. Finn is already past though before we even get into the braking zone. He's slightly outbroken himself there, has he? The proximity has disappeared. The Mercedes is still on the outside. He's got the inside for turn 5, and I think, has he just about managed to get the move done? He has, and Danny's got an awesome switchback though. Look at that. Is he going to dive it again? He is, but it's not quite going to work. What a move from the flying Finn there, showing all of his class. That was incredibly impressive. I'm sure all of those 65 people will be absolutely delighted to have seen a move like that.
Yeah, lots of emotes in the chat at that moment, I can imagine. Lots of kappas and all sorts of whatevers. The Flying Finn, though, back up into second position, now focusing on his brother. Again, if they were to finish like this would be the third race in a row where the brothers have finished 1-2, with STS F1 Alonso picking up his first ever win, his inaugural F1 2016, or AOR F1, like the top league. I don't know if he's raced in other leagues and won there, but certainly in this league, picking up his first win and looking to repeat as well here at Interlagos. But yeah, it's like you were saying, he pitted in a weird spot because ideally, if you're doing a two-stop here, you want to be pitting around lap 11 or 12, which is really what Danny and Lee did. You don't want to be pitting on lap 15, which is what Alonso did, because now he has 21 laps to do, or do a 10 and 11 lap stint, and that just doesn't make sense. So yeah, I think he really needs to ease off. He's got a pretty decent-sized gap at the moment, as Finch now trying to get back in front of Suprize in the battle for 4th position, and closing right up through Ferradura, the very long right-hander. Oh my God, that was man, wow, that was terrifying. I probably should have been watching this in windowed mode and not full screen, because that was actually really scary for me for a moment there. But Finch has actually managed, interesting style of overtake there from the Williams driver, but he does manage to reclaim 4th position. Through some interesting techniques there. And the Flying Finn still does have Danny M7 not far behind. Of course, no DRS in this race with the conditions the way they are. Flying Finn's tire wear is looking even much better than Finch's. That was something that you commented on, and I absolutely agree with. Look at that, 42% on the rear right, 26%, a difference of 16%. Whereas other drivers were seeing much even numbers, so I think Finch needs to possibly learn some short shifting techniques or something like that. But Flying Finn receives a message that his teammate is into the pits, actually, so it looks like Lee pitting at the end of lap 24, which is a good call. See, that's what I was talking about. If you're going to do the two-stop, you really want to be giving yourself 12-lap stints. So Lee makes the right call, I think, there. And here's Danny M7, who, again, pitted on lap 11. So that was a 14-lap stint. He's now got an 11-lap stint to do on this set of tires. So, I mean, he can really push this set of inters.
Yeah, he can, but he's okay. Oh dear, I think Xbox Live is having a bit of a nightmare tonight. That's 2 drivers now we've seen abruptly and quite surprisingly to us, have just disappeared, which is, not ideal. So I believe we actually have 8 runners left in the race.
Oh, that's right, because Lee disconnected. That's right.
Yeah, so it was actually his ghost car coming into the
well,
pit.
the ghost made the right choice.
Kudos to his ghost car to making the right call. But the Flying Finn, I think, unless my eyes are deceiving me, I reckon that gap has got considerably smaller. And it has. It's down to 2.8 seconds. I mean, before the stops, that was up at, 3.5, I think? It was something around there.
Almost
so
4.
The Flying Finn, with his 3-lap fresher intermediate tyres, is really starting to rein in his brother, as Ryan has joined the session.
5 lights.
Good job.
No.
Good job, my friend. And he's back in P9. He's going to be rescuing those. It will be 4 points, actually, once he overtakes Lee's ghost car, which... Wait, is Lee back in the race? That car looks like a real car to me.
I don't think Lee is. Ryan is back in the race, so this is Ryan. We're not just... His ghost wasn't kind enough to record for us. That would be pretty intense, but... I believe Lee is still out of it. We now skip ahead to lap 34. And it does look like STS F1 Alonso has indeed nursed those tires. So remember, he pitted 2 laps earlier than the Flying Finn. And we're on lap 34 out of 36. And the Flying Finn is definitely right up to the back of his brother. And there's a big old gap to ESR Suprize, who you can see is just making his way out of Ferradura now. Franglish is on, I think he can make that. He's at 66% on the rear right. I think he can make that if he just kind of nurses it. He does have his teammate RS Falcon closing up to the back of him, though, so we could see an inter-team battle between the Manners towards the end of this race, as well as a battle between the 2 brothers. So it's getting a little spicy here at the end.
It is, but what you can't forget is we saw Finn pick up that 3-second time penalty.
Oh, yes.
In the race. That, in this situation, is not going to cost him anything more than the victory, really. I mean, we haven't seen Alonso pick up a penalty, so we will assume that he doesn't have one, as he's going incredibly defensive, though, regardless. Into turn 1, Alonso obviously does not know that Finn has a penalty in this race, and for all we know, he might have a penalty himself. As on the exit of turn 3 now, and Finn, I'm sure, will try and fashion a move and just hope that his brother has picked up a 3-second time penalty as well. That is all that he can do in this situation, is just do his absolute best and then just hope and pray, really, that the McLaren in front of him has picked up a 3-second time penalty.
No.
Oh my goodness, Finch. We've had 36 races on this game and you still cannot save your rear tyres, mate. What are you doing? It's 85%, 20% higher than his front tyres. I mean, yes, some people driving style will cost them some rear tyre wear, but 85%? Really? That is on another level. He just needs to calm down a little bit. He's got himself a bit of clear air and he can hopefully just coast and make it to the end. That would be a pretty depressing end to the season for him to roll across the line with a puncture. I'm sure he doesn't want it. Oh my goodness, there is a barrier almost across the track. The dancing barrier, it appears, has worn itself out and is now just lying across the track. That is slightly questionable, as this manager is going on to the final lap of the race. As we start the final lap, Alonso has a big enough gap to the Flying Finn. He's trying to get some kind of slipstream. I think we might have the slipstream glitch in this race, as Alonso is going incredibly defensive into turn 1. He's worked that pretty well. There is no way past for the Flying Finn. Out of turn 3, though, is there any way for the Mercedes to get past? There is not a chance he gets past and pulls the 3-second gap. He has just got to hope and pray Alonso has a penalty, and I don't think he does. We haven't seen any onboard of Alonso picking up any corner cutting penalties, and by the looks of things, he's probably going to win on track as well. Oh my goodness, Finch, calm down. You're almost on 90% tyre wear. That is just ridiculous. How on earth has he not got a puncture yet? Surely it's got to give. Surely at some point his tyres are just going to implode and say, no, I've had enough. We're not drifting around any more corners for you. We're going to just explode. As this manor battle is still going on onto the final lap. And yeah, there's evidence we definitely have the slipstream glitch. Falcon just cannot get anywhere near Franglish. And despite Falcon having considerably better tyres, there is just no way through as Franglish runs wide on the exit of turn 4. He's trying to block his teammate behind him. Oh, it's all gone wrong. He's into the wall and Falcon is through up into P6. Thankfully, on his screen, there is no barrier for Franglish. But back to the front, and STS F1 Alonso has held off the Flying Finn. He's going to come up to the line to win the final race on F1 2016. A second victory for Alonso, a third one too even, for the 2 brothers who have been probably the dominant force in AOR these past 2 seasons, and it's a fitting end, I think, to have the two of them finish 1 and 2. A Suprize!
What?
Suprize has got a puncture!
Is he out of fuel? He's got a puncture?
He's the one with a puncture. Or run out of fuel. One of the two, but Finch somehow, with a minor miracle, survives with 90% tyre wear. That is quite something.
That's the real story here, I think. How that man did that is just mind-blowing to me, especially with corners like this, with these conditions as well. Just the amount of wheel spin. And RS Falcon is going to send off his 2016 manor in the best possible way. It looks like Franglish is going to manage to stay ahead of ESR Ryan to claim 8th position as Sauber is teleported directly in his path as he crosses the finish line. And what an incredible end to the season. Season 13 is all over and done with. It was just 15 races and just incredible stuff. The Flying Finn does grab the championship, but STS F1 Alonso picking up a 2nd consecutive win, and it's 3 1-2 finishes in a row for the brothers Alonso and Finn, and ESR Finch finishing in 3rd position by some miracle of God. No idea what happened with Suprize, actually. I don't know if we can get information about that before the race is over, but Danny M7 nearly repeating the podium that he got in Coda, so that would have been really nice for the Haas driver if he could have gotten that. But RS Falcon does manage to finish ahead of his teammate ESR Ryan in 8th position, and in 9th position ESR Lee, despite being a bot, he will pick up a couple of points there and 6 skills as well. And we are getting word that it does look like it is potentially a puncture for ESR Suprize, so we just pushed those inters a little bit too much, and it was just too much for him, and couldn't hold on to that. But a fantastic win for STS F1 Alonso. Again, the Flying Finn is confirmed as being the champion for this season. That happened a while ago, in case you missed it. Tyrrell Martin does hold on to that 2nd place position despite not partaking in today's race. ESR Lee needed 2nd place or better in order to overhaul Martin to take 2nd in the championship. ESR Finch, though, does move ahead of RS Falcon, interestingly enough, in the championship standings, and has better, higher finishes as well, despite them being tied. Oh man, and it was so close as well. Orca, who wasn't here for this race, down into 10th position, does stay ahead of his teammate, though, Danny M7, who moves up into 11th in the standings after that race. But man, what a way to send off F1 2016.
It was quite a race, and I think looking at the Drivers' Championship, to pick out 1 or 2 things, I would probably say Finch, over the course of the game, has got to be up there as probably the most improved driver we've seen. To go from starting Season 12 in GP2 to getting promoted halfway through F1, halfway through Season 12, I believe, to then winning a race by halfway through Season 13 is quite a journey. So I think props to him for that. That is quite something to go from GP2 to F1 race winner. And here we are looking at the constructors. Not much to see. It's been like this for several rounds. Mercedes have run away despite having only 1 driver for the majority of the season. Lee actually still picking up 3rd in the driver's standings. So Finn and Lee are constructors champions. So another 2nd consecutive constructors title for the Flying Finn. Red Bull getting 2nd, and then Renault up in 3rd ahead of McLaren and Williams. That was actually pretty close between all of those 3 teams, and also between Haas and Sauber, only 1 point separating the 2 of them for 6th in the standings. And then there's a little bit of a drop off between Mana and Toro Rosso. So yeah, there we have it. Thank you all very much for watching. It's been, personally for me, an absolute pleasure to commentate on this league. It's something, watching it back on F1 2013, never imagined that I would actually one day be commentating on it. So thank you very much to Fisi for the opportunity for that. That was pretty awesome for me to actually have that opportunity.
Yeah, and one person that Fizzy didn't include on here because he doesn't like him is Seiyariu, but we want to say a big thank you to Seiyariu as well. The provisional date, because I'm American, is January 10th, 2017. Just kidding. It's October 1st, 2017 is the provisional date for the next round, so make sure you guys tune in for Season 14 on F1 2017, which as of this recording is coming out like this weekend. Comes out on like Friday. Some people have it already, we won't get into that, but it comes out for everybody else on Friday. Personally, I am very much looking forward to that, as I'm sure the rest of us all are. So for Ali and Fizzy and Chris and myself, thank you all for watching Season 13 of AOR F1 2016. We will see you in the next season with F1 2017. Thanks and goodbye.